Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So I'm back with another 5 must-play games for the Atari. I started this series because I wanted to do something where people who are just getting back into the hobby of maybe collecting, maybe playing, or maybe they haven't played in a long time, they just feel like playing some classic video games, or maybe they pick up an Atari in a garage sale or find it in their basement from when they were a kid. And typically the first thing they do is they go on social media and they start asking people, what are the games I should pick up? So I thought, let's do a 5 must play. And so the first video I did on this, I talked about the 5 Activision games that I thought would be, something that you should look out for. So these ones are the classic arcade ports. Now that's what the Atari really became known for, was trying to port the very games that you were playing in the arcade and put it onto your home TV, essentially. And, some of them were good, some of them were failures. We all know about PacMan not living up to its expectations. But that doesn't mean that all the games were bad. There was a lot of great games that were ported from the arcade and onto the Atari. And so I picked out 5 that I thought would be, they are easy to track down and they're a lot of fun to play. So I'm going to start off with the very first one being Space Invaders. Now, Space Invaders, I think, is what made the system start to really grab people's attention. I'm sure a lot of people bought an Atari so they could play Space Invaders, because it was around the time when Space Invaders, the arcade, really was taking off. And I mean, Space Invaders was huge. It was the thing to play in the arcades. Of course, Pac-Man came along and Donkey Kong and all them, and they started to outshine Space Invaders, but that's just the nature of video games. Every time you make a video game, there's always going to be something else that'll come along in the future, and it will just make the other ones, less desirable, obsolete, or whatever. But Space Invaders has literally held its own all these years, and the Atari was probably the first to actually put the game out there and make it almost like playing in the arcade. Now, there was some slight differences. But, some people arguably say that the Atari version was better than the arcade. Well, the look and feel of it, the gameplay and all that was better than the arcade. I've never actually played the arcade myself, so I don't know. I've seen pictures of it. I've seen, I think it was all one color. It was green and stuff like that. But you're going back in time to when, games were brand new. This was all new technology, and, for something like the Atari to come along and try and replicate it, they did a damn good job. They actually took what they saw and they replicated it very well. And there's a lot of different variants in this. There's a lot of ways to play. You can hide your shield things. You could have them moving. You could have invisible Space Invaders. There's just so many different things you could do in this one cartridge. And the best thing is, it's usually cheap. Typically you'd find this in a store for like $2 to $5, maybe. Maybe even cheaper. Thrift stores, you probably find it for 99 cents. That type of thing. Garage sales. When you buy an Atari off of somebody, they'll probably have it with there, because this was the game to pick up when it came out. The next one I want to talk about is Moon Patrol. Now this is another favorite. In fact, when I did my video where I played the Moon Patrol for the arcade, a lot of people came out saying they used to love the arcade version. They used to love the game as a kid. They played it a lot. And, the Atari version is okay. It tries to mimic as much as possible. Now, there is some limitations to the Atari, and you always have to accept that. The Atari 2600 was not the most powerful machine. And so there was some problems with, creating things like going up a steep hill and, little things like that. But it did a good job in actually replicating the gameplay itself and being, difficult. And that's what I found this one. And I've played this one as well on my channel, and I realize how hard this game is. Like, you get through the first level, you think, well, this game is easy. You get to the second level, and things change quickly. It's all about timing and knowing when to shoot, knowing when to jump. But it's a lot of fun, and it has an awesome soundtrack. People love the sound of this. And it does give you an option to turn it off. And so when I did a Brian Plays on this one, I had I think it was the difficulty switch set that the music was off, and I didn't even realize it. So after I put the video out, people were like, well, why didn't you have the music on? But it could get repetitive, so there's a good reason why maybe not. Anyways, yeah, Moon Patrol, definitely a good title to pick up. The next one is another arcade classic that probably a lot of people played in the pizza parlors, and that's Dig Dug. Now, the thing I like about Dig Dug on this system is it does a really good job in replicating not only the gameplay itself, but the look and feel of Dig Dug. The colors are all there. The characters are all there. The actions of the character is all there. In fact, you know, I remember seeing an Atari 7800 cartridge for this, and I didn't bother picking it up because I'm like, you know what, the 2600 version does the job, and it does it well. So if you really want that real one-screen arcade feel that sort of changes throughout, you know, each level, but if you want that real fun game where you're just, you know, playing to have fun, this is your game. And if you've ever played it in the arcade, you probably realize that there's a lot of similarities. Now, obviously, some of the details not there. You know, it's a little bit more blocky, but that's fine. That's what the Atari was. It was blocky. So I would suggest Dig Dug for sure. Now, this one, Miss PacMan, had, you know, I would say made up for the horrible PacMan that came before it. And this one did a good job. This is the game that came out and said, let me show you how to make a PacMan game on the Atari. This one came out later, though. This was like 87. So I understand that. It took them some time to figure out what they did wrong. And that's why I didn't include PacMan in this, because you could probably pick it up and still play it. And there's a lot of people that enjoy PacMan. But it doesn't give you the authentic PacMan feel. It doesn't. There's something missing about it. It's not a bad game, but it's something lacking. The sounds, the ghosts. There's a lot of problems with it. This fixed that, and this makes you feel like you're actually playing Miss Pac-Man on the Atari. And that's what you want. You wanted a port. You wanted a game that you brought home. You took it out of the box. You put it in your Atari, and you felt like you were at the arcade playing the game. Now, in the 80s, obviously, we didn't have much to compare it to. So it was kind of like apples and oranges almost, where you knew the arcade was always going to be miles and miles better than the stuff you would bring home. Unlike today, where the stuff you have at home is probably way better than they could ever produce in the arcades. It just kind of went through that little reversal thing. But this game was definitely worth your buck. And again, it's fairly cheap if you find it. I believe it's like, $5 on average. I'm talking Canadian prices. I'm from Canada, so I'm talking Canadian. I don't know about other parts of the world, but where I come from, this is where you would pick this up for like $5. And again, if you bought a collection off of somebody, chances are this is going to be in there because Miss Pac-Man was the game that everybody wanted to play. And so the last one is, and this one surprised me when I got it, and that's Joust. Now this was kind of a popular game in the arcades, but I didn't play it when I was younger. I had it on the Commodore 64. I thought it was an okay game, but I didn't have I didn't play it in the arcades. That's what I'm trying to say. But it was a popular arcade game. And now that I've seen other versions of it, I realize how well this port was. Sure, it's a little blocky on the graphics, but again, that's what you're expecting when you're playing the Atari 2600. You're expecting some of the blocky graphics. But it does a good job. The physics of the game, it's not hard to control. The way that the character runs and then kind of, he speeds up and then he hits the brakes and he slows down a little bit. He's got a little bit of a drag there. The way you have to joust the opponents, there's a lot going on. When they break up and they turn into an egg and you have to catch the egg, there's a lot of great stuff going on in this game. And there's multi-levels as well. So you get to like these different bonus stages. You get to different platform stages. So there's a lot changing as well. I don't know about pricing on this one. I know it can go all over the place. Again, I said this before. You can go to garage sales and probably pick these things up for really cheap. You can go to a flea market. Someone might know the value and be like, well, I want $10 for that. And of course, it depends on if you get it loose. if you get it in box, if you get it in you know, with the manual complete and all that stuff. For me, I've never been too much of the completionist. I don't really care. I'm happy enough with just the cartridge. I don't need the box. I don't need the manual. You know, some games it's handy to have a manual. I admit that. But you can, well, I mean, we have the internet now, so you can go online. You can go on AtariAge.com. They pretty much have every single manual for every single Atari game. So if you need the manual, but this, you don't need the manual. You can figure this out without that manual. In fact, I got this as a gift when I was younger, when I had my Atari when I was a kid. And I didn't even look at the manual. I just put it in the Atari and started playing it, and I knew what I was doing, which makes for a really good game. I mean, that's what you want. You want games that you just pop it into your Atari, and it's fun from the beginning. So yeah, so those were my 5 must-play Atari arcade ports that I, you know, decided to show on this episode anyways. There's a lot more, obviously. There was a lot of, you know, there's the pole position and stuff like that I was thinking about. It does get hard to kind of narrow it down to certain games and, you know, which ones are the better ones. There's a lot of games on the Atari. There's a lot of good games. There's a lot of bad games. So hopefully this segment can help you make the right choices when it comes to if you're going out to buy, if you're going out to look, if you just want to get back into playing and having fun again. These are the games that I would suggest you look for. Pick them up, give them a try, even if you emulate them. Play it on your computer or on those at-game products. Either way, it's a lot of fun. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Let me know what you think of the choices. Throw some of your suggestions down below. I always love to hear it. And hope you subscribe to my channel. Talk to you later.